The students at Westbridge University were still settling into their seats when Professor Alden strode into the lecture hall with his usual arrogance. His reputation was as sharp as the chalk he snapped between his fingers, brilliant, smug, and merciless toward anyone he believed beneath his. His gaze swept the room and landed on the janitor, quietly sweeping in the back. Ethan, 35 years old, with calloused hands and a calm face, kept his head down and worked silently. Most people ignored him, which was fine by him. But today, the professor decided to make him a spectacle. Beside Ethan, a woman stood waiting for the lecture to end. Lena, 30 years old, had come to deliver a request from administration about the broken projector. She was graceful, soft-spoken, and far more observant than she appeared. She noticed the professor's eyes narrowing, the curl of his lips, a storm gathering. She braced herself. "Well, well," Professor Alden said loudly. "If it isn't the university's finest minds, plus our sweeping staff." Students chuckled. Ethan kept sweeping. The professor tapped the board with his knuckle. "I bet even our janitor here thinks he understands mathematics." More laughter. Lena's jaw tensed. Ethan paused but didn't look up. The professor raised his voice. "Tell you what, Mr. Broom, solve this equation." He scribbled a monstrous expression across the board. "And I'll marry you myself." The room erupted. It was an insult disguised as a joke, meant to humiliate him completely. Ethan looked at the board calmly. Then at Lena, who whispered, "You don't have to entertain him," but something in Ethan's expression changed. Not anger, not pride, just quiet resolve. He stepped forward. Professor Alden crossed his arms smugly. "You understand the terms?" Ethan nodded. "Yes, you said you'd marry me," the students howled. The professor bowed mockingly. "By all means, try. Let's see brilliance from a mop." Lena watched Ethan step closer to the board. He took the chalk gently, like someone handling an old memory. For a moment, the lecture hall was silent, except for the scratching of chalk. The professor's smirk faded as Ethan rewrote the expression, condensed it, shifted variables, and applied something the students had never even seen before, not even in their graduate courses. Lena recognized the fluency in his movements. Not the clumsy attempts of someone guessing, but the confidence of someone who had lived inside equations for years. 5 minutes later, Ethan set the chalk down. "Your denominator cancels here," he said softly, "and your constant term was miswritten. But with the correction, this is the solution." He stepped back. Professor Alden stared at the board. His face drained of color. Not only was the solution correct, it was elegant, precise, something only a true master could derive. Whispers spread like wildfire. "Is that real? He solved it? I've never even seen that method." Ethan picked up his broom again. "You don't owe—" Lena recognized the fluency in his movements.
"Me a marriage, Professor," he said gently, "but you do owe your students a better example." Lena's heart thudded. She had known Ethan only from passing interactions, but she'd never seen him like this. The professor cleared his throat, humiliated, furious, but trapped. He grabbed his bag and stormed out without a word. The students swarmed Ethan, asking questions he had no interest in answering. Lena stepped in front of them. "He's working," she said firmly, guiding him through the crowd. When they reached the hallway, Ethan finally exhaled. "I'm sorry," he murmured. "I didn't mean to cause a scene." Lena shook her head. "You didn't cause anything. He did." Then she added, "How did you do that?" Ethan shrugged, embarrassed. "I used to be a mathematician." "Used to be?" He hesitated. The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly overhead. "Life happened," he said softly. "A family emergency. Bills. I left my PhD program to work here. It pays steady." Lena felt something tighten in her chest. "You gave up your future for your family." "I did what I had to do," Ethan replied. "Some things matter more than titles." That night, the entire university buzzed with the story of the janitor who solved the professor's unsolvable equation. Students repeated it. Faculty whispered about it. The administration received dozens of emails requesting Ethan's reinstatement into an academic program. Ethan tried to ignore the chaos, but Lena found him again, sitting on a bench outside after his shift ended. He looked tired but peaceful. She sat beside him. "You know," she said, "there's something poetic about today." "Poetic?" he chuckled. "You walked into that room invisible," she said quietly, "and you walked out untouchable." Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. "I didn't want attention." "I know," she said, "but sometimes life pushes you into the light when darkness has lasted long enough." She paused. "Tell me something. Why mathematics? What makes you love it so much?" He smiled faintly. "It's predictable, honest. It doesn't judge, doesn't lie. When everything in my life was falling apart, equations were the only constant I could hold on to." He noticed the softness in Lena's eyes. "What about you? You always seem so calm." Lena laughed lightly. "I'm not calm. I just learned to be careful. I lost someone a few years ago, and since then I became quiet, observing instead of living." They sat there in silence, two people who had survived storms in different shapes. The next morning, Professor Alden stormed into the dean's office, demanding Ethan be reprimanded. But the dean had already received video recordings from students. The entire incident had gone viral inside the university. The dean instead called Ethan in. Lena waited outside anxiously. When Ethan emerged, she saw the shock on his face. "What happened?" she asked. He blinked, still processing. "They offered me a scholarship, full support. They want me to finish my degree." Lena clasped her.
Hands together, trying not to beam. "Ethan, that's amazing!" "They also offered me a part-time research position." His eyes softened with gratitude. "I don't even know how to accept something like this." "You accept it by believing you deserve it," she said warmly, "because you do." Over the following weeks, Ethan transitioned from janitor to research assistant. Students greeted him with respect now. Some even asked him to tutor them. But amid all the sudden admiration, the person he gravitated toward was Lena. She had seen him before anyone else did. They started having coffee together, then lunches, then quiet walks around campus. One evening, after finishing their work, they walked toward the parking lot as autumn leaves swirled around them. Lena hugged her jacket tighter. "It's strange," she said. "A month ago, we barely knew each other." "And now?" Ethan asked gently. She hesitated. "Now you feel like someone I was meant to meet." He stopped walking. The golden streetlight reflected in his eyes. "I feel the same." He brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Everything changed so fast. I went from sweeping floors to solving equations again. But the best part of all of it was meeting you." Her breath caught. "I don't need fame or praise," he continued, "but I don't want to lose you." "You won't," she whispered. He reached for her hand. "Lena, can I take you out tomorrow? Not coffee, not lunch, an actual date." She smiled, cheeks warm. "Yes, I'd love that." Their date happened at a quiet little restaurant outside campus. They talked for hours about dreams, regrets, childhood memories, hopes they were afraid to voice. Ethan confessed how he spent years believing he had thrown away his purpose. Lena confessed she had spent years believing no one would ever understand her grief. By the end of the night, something had shifted between them, something deep and undeniable. As months passed, Ethan finished his courses with astonishing speed. Professors admired him, students relied on him, and every step of the way, Lena walked beside him, supporting him, cheering him on, becoming his closest friend and closest love. On the final day of the academic year, the university invited him to speak at a ceremony. Ethan thanked everyone humbly, but when he finished, he walked off stage straight toward Lena. In front of the entire hall, he took her hands and said softly, "If solving an equation could win a fake proposal, maybe completing this journey should earn me a real one." Her breath trembled. "Ethan, I love you," he said simply, "and I don't want a future without you." Tears filled her eyes. "Yes, yes, I'll marry you." The crowd erupted. Somewhere in the back, Professor Alden stiffened, but Ethan didn't even look his way. Lena wrapped her arms around him, whispering, "You solved more than an equation that day. You solved me." And Ethan, holding her close, finally felt something he thought he had lost forever: belonging, purpose, and a